Rosa was 68 when she noticed it. Not pain, not illness, just the slow fade of strength. One afternoon, standing in her kitchen, she struggled to lift a bag of groceries. Not because it was heavy, but because she no longer trusted her arms the way she once did. She didn't want to run a marathon. She didn't want to lift weights. She just wanted to carry her memories upstairs, boxes of photo albums. The sweater her husband wore every winter, the ceramic bowl her daughter made in art class. If you've ever felt that quiet betrayal, when your body hesitates, even though your heart still wants to move, this message is for you. Because healing after 60 isn't about starting something new. It's about feeding what your body already remembers. Morning rebuilders. Morning is when the body remembers. Before the world rushes in, there's stillness. And in that stillness, your body is quietly rebuilding, cell by cell, fiber by fiber. That's why Rosa treated her mornings like sacred ground. She didn't start with coffee. She started with a ritual. A bowl of chia seeds, soaked overnight in almond milk until they softened into tiny pearls of nourishment. To that, she added a generous spoonful of Greek yogurt, thick, cool, and grounding. Not just for flavor, but because it held something her muscles craved. Leucine, the amino acid that gently wakes up muscle synthesis, and omega-3s, the anti-inflammatory oils that move like healers through tired tissues. It wasn't about numbers. It was about trust. Trusting that a small bowl could speak louder than any supplement. Alongside it, she'd boil 2 eggs. Not hard, not runny, just soft enough that the yolks still glistened like sunlight. She'd slice them, then drizzle a touch of extra virgin olive oil on top. It was her quiet way of saying, "This morning, I choose to nourish, not rush." The eggs gave her choline for her brain, protein for her strength, and the olive oil offered something deeper, a slow-burning anti-inflammatory balm for her joints. It's easy to think mornings need to be dramatic to be effective. But Rosa proved otherwise, because some of the deepest healing begins in silence, in softness, in the simple act of returning to food that feels familiar, but sacred. So I'll ask gently, what's your bowl of strength? Not the one that gives you energy, but the one that reminds you who you're becoming. Midday lifters. By midday, something subtle shifts. The early calm begins to fray. Your focus drifts. The body, already having given its best morning effort, asks quietly, will you support me or just push through? Rosa learned not to ignore this question. She used to rely on coffee or a quick sweet, but over time, those spikes left her feeling even more depleted. So she created a midday ritual, not a meal, not a snack, a quiet act of reinforcement. Most days, it began with a few slices of grilled mackerel, oily, flaky, rich in flavor. These humble fish, once a staple in her grandmother's kitchen, were now her secret allies. Mackerel, sardines, even a bit of salmon, each packed with EPA and DHA, 2 omega-3s proven to reduce chronic inflammation in aging muscles. But Rosa didn't just think of food as fuel, she thought of it as conversation. So, to continue that dialogue, she added a small palmful of walnuts or pumpkin seeds. These weren't just crunch and texture, they were carriers of magnesium and zinc, trace minerals that helped her muscles fire properly and her nerves stay grounded. Sometimes, she'd sprinkle a bit of sea salt or rosemary. Other times, she'd eat in silence, looking out the window, letting the ritual fill not just her belly, but her rhythm. She noticed something surprising. When she honored that midday dip, even gently, her afternoons felt less like a slow crawl and more like a quiet glide. So, now I ask you, what's your midday pause? Is there a food that doesn't just fill, but lifts? Because maybe energy after 60 isn't something you chase. Maybe it's something you listen to. Evening soothers. Evening is not a time to chase. It's a time to return. For Rosa, evenings held a kind of hush, not just in sound, but in the way her body softened. The house grew quiet. The sun lowered its voice, and she prepared to hand the day back to itself. She didn't need a big dinner. She needed comfort, in texture, in memory, in rhythm. Most evenings, she would begin with a small bowl of mixed berries, blueberries, raspberries, and sometimes a few slices of pear. She'd dust them with cinnamon, almost ceremonially. This wasn't dessert. It was devotion. The anthocyanins in the berries, she once read, worked like tiny shields against oxidative stress, especially in older cells. Cinnamon, warm and grounding, helped her keep blood sugar steady through the night. But she didn't eat quickly. She sat by her window, watched the wind dance in the trees, let the colors on her plate echo the sky outside, pinks, purples, a soft gold. And then came the part she cherished most, golden milk. She'd warm a cup of oat milk slowly on the stove, add turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and a drizzle of honey. It smelled like warmth itself. It tasted like rest. Turmeric worked quietly inside her, soothing inflammation built up during the day. The warmth of the milk told her nervous system, "It's okay now, you did enough, you are enough." Some nights, she'd write a single sentence in her journal. Other nights, nothing at all. Just breath and golden milk. What carries you into sleep? Is there a scent, a sip, a softness that tells your body, you've arrived, you can let go now? Because healing doesn't just happen in what we do, it happens in how we choose to end the day. The anchor habit. Of all her healing foods, there was one that Rosa never missed, not because it tasted extraordinary, but because it held her. She called it her anchor, a small ceramic bowl, slightly chipped on one edge, but deeply loved. Inside it, millet, cooked slowly with a pinch of sea salt until soft and fragrant. A soft-boiled egg, peeled tenderly, placed right in the center. A drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, letting the warmth carry its scent across the room. Sometimes she added parsley. Sometimes she didn't. But it was always the same bowl, the same ritual, the same pause. It wasn't just about nutrition. It was about rhythm. This bowl reminded Rosa who she was, before the fatigue, before the forgetfulness, before her body began to move a little slower than her heart. She didn't eat it because it was trendy. She ate it because it grounded her, because it whispered, "Here you are again, still strong, still you." On days when her joints ached or her thoughts felt scattered, this bowl was her reset. It didn't promise miracles, but it promised presence. She often said, "I don't need more energy. I need more memory of who I am and how far I've come." That bowl became a thread, connecting her mornings and evenings, her youth and her wisdom, her body and her breath. And when her granddaughter asked one day, "Grandma, why do you always eat that same bowl?" she smiled gently and said, "Because it reminds me I'm still rebuilding, and I'm worth the effort." What if aging isn't a retreat, but a return, not to youth, but to wisdom, to memory, to trust? Rosa didn't fight time. She befriended it. She didn't measure herself in steps, walked, or weights lifted. She measured herself in mornings claimed, in evenings softened, in small bowls that whispered, "You are still here. You are still becoming." Her strength didn't come back all at once. It returned like an old friend knocking gently, first through breath, then in her balance, then in her willingness to walk without fear. And now, when her grandson sprints toward her, arms wide, she doesn't freeze. She lifts him, not because she trained for it, but because she nourished the part of her that never stopped wanting to hold life fully. So let me ask you this. Is there a food, a ritual, a rhythm you once loved that you've forgotten? Something simple, something quiet, something your body still knows how to receive. If only you let it speak again, because maybe the real healing after 60 isn't in finding the next breakthrough, but in remembering what once made you feel whole and choosing it again. If even one of these foods already sits quietly on your shelf, let it become more than just an ingredient. Let it become a moment, a returning, a reminder that your strength was never lost, only waiting to be remembered. You don't have to start big. You can simply begin with one bowl, with one cup of golden milk, with one quiet pause before the sun rises. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one healing ritual or food that helps you feel rooted in your body again? Share it in the comments, not just for yourself, but for someone else who may need your voice to begin. And if this message touched something true in you, something gentle, something hopeful. Subscribe to stay close. We'll keep walking this quiet path of restoration together, not with noise, but with nourishment.